So, Haresh, I'm so delighted to be here with you today.
Thank you.
We're going to discuss the founding of the Blume Center and its evolution as a world-renowned earthquake engineering center. We have about 30 minutes to talk, and let's get started. So I want to start with the inaugural celebration 50 years ago. And let's set the stage. I think we've got a wonderful historical context from both Greg and Eduardo. Let's just talk about what happened with what you were involved with. The Blume Center was initially approved by the Provost Miller, on September 23rd, 1974. And by June 1975, you and Jim Gear had set up all the administrative structure, the budgeting, all that kind of thing. And only then did you plan the inaugural symposium, which occurred on Friday, September 17th, 1976. Let's see. Oops, I'm hitting the wrong one. Okay. This slide here shows the inaugural program. It's a map of the what happened that day. And what we can see here is that the program was spread all over campus. There was the inaugural symposium itself, which was in Dinkelspiel Auditorium. There were 450 attendees. It was really a big deal. And I think a number of people in this room, I've seen a few here already today, were there at that event. The impressive thing is that the attendees were from all over the world. They were represented the public sector, government agencies, universities, utilities, consulting engineers, insurance companies, and the list goes on. It was quite phenomenal. The organizing committee, which is listed here, was also pretty impressive. It had Stanford faculty, representatives from USGS, the private practice, NSF, and other universities. Greg did a wonderful job of talking about the symposium speakers earlier, and it included, again, a very broad range of people from the geosciences to structural engineers talking about what had happened in the past and what the future had to do. And then there were demonstrations that were held in the Blume Center. And I just want to point out a couple people in this slide. On the left-hand side there with the shake table test, Greg Luth, where are you, Greg? Somewhere. Greg Luth is there in the white coat. Russ Mills, where are you, Russ? Somewhere back here. Russ is the one standing next to Greg Luth in this picture. And who else is in there? Oh, Robert Narver, I don't know if he's here. He was, oh, there he is the one that's on the Fourier analyzer. I love the showing everything has to be labeled. Anyway, so it was a great day. Tell us a little bit about what it was like for you and how you attracted such a distinguished set of speakers and organizing committee members and so on and so forth. So tell us about your experience.
Thank you, Thalia. First of all, you gave a great historical talk.
Amazing.
Really enjoyed it. And the contributions of Stanford, mechanical engineering, geoscience, as well as civil engineering was outstanding. So when we began, we already had a giants whose shoulders we were sitting on. So Stanford had a great name to begin with. It turns out that at the time around the world, most of the famous earthquake engineering research labs were doing experimental work. There were big labs at Illinois, big lab at Berkeley, and many other places around the world. But there were not too many places in understanding how society feels, what happens to a society after an earthquake, the after effects of an earthquake. We wanted to focus, at least in the beginning, two things. One, we wanted to look at the global effect of earthquakes, not only in United States or developed countries, but where most of the people die, where most of the misery post-earthquake occurs. So we wanted to bring in and understand what makes earthquake risk much greater for a given earthquake. And of course, we all know that quality of construction is one of them. The most important one, if not one of them. But also, there are many other things, such as social setup, the quality of engineering, the quality of infrastructure, the quality of how the government and the society interact. So risk was much complex than just putting up structures. So we looked around and talked to various individuals around the world. What do they do and what is their philosophy of bringing in the socio-economic, political aspects of earthquake? And we found some of the leading thinkers were in this country, but so were they in Europe and in Americas and in Asia. Mm-hmm. Japan was doing excellent work at the time. So the first thing after the Blume Center, we decided that we want to set up a Blume Center. We started talking to these people. And we told them that our hope is to work with them, but bring in the aspect that they are not looking at. And they were very excited. They understood very much of what we were trying to do. And they also knew the historical work done by Stanford in the area. So it did not take too much pulling to bring them over to Stanford for the symposium. As a matter of fact, everybody we asked was very happy to come. It was not pleading and saying, please come and be part of the opening, but they said they would love to come and talk about it, and talk about where the future is and what we need to do. So we ourselves were impressed. We did not expect everyone to say yes. To Jim Geer, my professor, he was my professor. Jim Geer was well known in structural engineering. And he was friends with people like Nate Newmark and others. So he could pull in his friends. Stanford could pull in because of his name. And we could pull in people because of our innovative idea that we should look at the world and we should look at not just structural aspects, but the overall aspects of urban living and urban building. So it was not a
It was easy.
hard work.
It was easy.
We were lucky that doing the right thing at the right time.
Great. Wonderful. I wish I'd been there. The next thing I want to talk about is the proposal that you and Jim Geer wrote. So in order to get this center, you had to write a detailed proposal to the university in order to get both some matching funding and to describe what the center was going to do. You've talked a little bit about this already, but what was your vision for the center that you laid out in that proposal?
This is very interesting. This is a 50-year-old memory. So it fades a little as time goes by. But as I recall, After Lydik Jacobsen's work, there was a lab that Professor Wing used to use for aircraft and wind tunnel. And after he retired, that wind tunnel was lying unused. So in our proposal, those who are from Stanford would know that here space is more important than people. So if you have a place, you can do things. If you have people and no space, you can't do anything. So we went to the administration and said, look, this place is living empty. Nobody's using it. It belongs to mechanical engineering. We would like to turn it into an earthquake engineering center. And again, timing and the reason worked in our favor, and they grabbed it. They said, oh, this is a great idea. Why don't we do this? So they said, where is the money? Who is going to pay for it? And we said, first let us think about the principle. Are you going to give us the space? Then we'll solve the problem of money. They agreed that if we can come up with the money to renovate the wind tunnel into an earthquake lab, yes. So then we started our hard task of raising money. And at that time, we used to talk to the government, and we used to talk. I traveled to Canada and all over United States to understand how they are financed, who is providing the funds for infrastructure. So we found out that the best way to set up in a private university is a new center is to find a donor. So we eliminated government as a funding agency. We don't want our style at Stanford is first prefer private donors. So we went to many friends. John Blume was a good friend. He had no children. He was in the earthquake engineering business, structural engineering business. He was a graduate of Stanford. He always wanted to do something with Stanford. His wife was very much in favor of it, Ruth, the first wife. And we convinced him that if he provides the funding for renovating the wind tunnel into an earthquake engineering center, we would like him to donate the funds. So in principle, he agreed. And of course, we used the right language by saying, yes, we have the funding, even though we didn't. We can find the funding. We have a committed donor, and they did not believe us, of course. Mm-hmm. So we put John Blume in touch with the university development office, and we all agreed that he will provide the funding. Then the question was, what do we do with the lab if there is no research money? So we went all around with the government, National Science Foundation, USGS, even foreign governments, and we were amazed at how easy it was to get the funding. On day one, we had more funding than we had students. So we were very fortunate, and we were ready to start.
Haresh, I want to follow up on something that we talked about earlier when we first planned this. You had mentioned to me that you had this very sort of deep in your heart vision of making sort of a global impact and the idea of having students come here to Stanford and then be able to go back to their country and make a change. So I would like you to just maybe speak to that a little bit.
Okay. As I said earlier, the greatest post-earthquake misery occurs in developing countries of Asia, South America, Central America. And I wanted to work with them, but there were not too many labs except in Japan. Japan was doing extremely well, but Japan has a very interesting social setup. They are very introvert looking, at least in those days. So they were not very much willing to work internationally with many other countries, even though on one-to-one we had good relationship. So the next best thing to do was, why don't we look at the earthquake risk problem of the world and develop courses and research agenda which would attract students from all over the world. Initially, we were very successful in doing so for Central America because they are nearby, they understood, they had earthquakes, and North Africa. So we decided to take the strategy that bring them here, make them work on the problem of importance to them, and send them, when they go back, connect with them in different parts of the world. So there were times where we had students from North Africa, all over Central America, all over Asia. We had just unbelievable United Nations at Stanford at the Blume Center. And it worked extremely well, so much so that we started getting funding from institutions in poorer countries like Nicaragua. Nicaragua Central Bank started funding us. Costa Rica government started funding us. We had funding from, you won't believe this, but a small funding from Mongolia. And why? Because they were proud that a major university in North America is willing to listen to them and their problems and willing to take their students and help them improve their education and understanding of earthquake and to reduce the earthquake risk.
Great. Thanks, Haresh. I want to sort of change topics now. Greg had a very nice slide in his overall presentation of the different areas that the Blume Center has looked at. And I want to talk a little bit about the risk reliability section of the slide that he showed. I looked through some technical reports on the Blume Center website from 1975 when the center opened until recently, and there's over 200 technical reports. It's an amazing compendium of research. And I just randomly selected a few titles here, and we can see that we have this thread that runs from 1975 all the way to the present of probabilistic methods, risk and reliability. They've been hallmarks, really, of the Blume Center and the kind of research that's been done here. So can you discuss a little bit the influence of Jack Benjamin, Alan Cornell, Paul Slovic, and other individuals or collaborations such as USGS on the development of this focus at the Blume Center?
Yes. As many of you know, Jack Benjamin was a professor of structural engineering at Stanford, a pioneer in the use of probability and statistics. And he had outstanding students like Alan Cornell, Ted Zutti, Bill Venuti, and I also happened to be his student. When the Blume Center began, he was alive and active. And he suggested that we should also focus on bringing in probability and statistics into our research agenda. So it turns out that I had some fantastic students like Anne Carmigian, Chris Morgard, people like Auguste Boissonade, some incredibly bright students, all of them smarter than me. So I was a conduit for them to do it. I provided them the opportunity to use their brilliance and get the thing going in the right direction. So at one time, we had contracts starting with Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, you name it, every Central American country. In North Africa, we had contracts everywhere. I had a problem putting the right bright student like Anne and her colleagues in different countries, in charge of different countries. But the strategy paid off. They were so good that after looking at their work, the next country said, we want to do the same. We did not have to sell them too much and tell them this is something you need to do. So, job of mine was to encourage them and do their thing. Every one of them traveled, and they were really in charge of what was going on in that country. I relied on them. I learned from them. They were very good. So as a professor and a founder of the Blume Center, I saw that you can't do it alone. It is the young people with lots of energy and ideas and enthusiasm and passion who will make it happen. So as many people say, a professor does not change the world. A professor creates an environment by which his or her student change the world.
I think you're being a little modest.
I tried that.
You definitely had a wonderful vision that made that happen. Let's change again the subject, and let's talk just a touch about John Blume. We got a lot of information about John from Eduardo, and we know that John Blume was interested in earthquakes from a very young age. His family had experienced the 1906 earthquake. Their house had collapsed in the earthquake. The family lore was that the family had to crawl out of the second-story window in order to escape from the house. And so he heard this stuff around the breakfast table and the dinner table while he was growing up. And then, by chance, when he was 16, he was in Santa Barbara during the 1925 earthquake, and he helped with search and rescue at that time. We also know that, as Eduardo talked about, he had a very strong connection with Stanford. As a student, as an undergraduate, he majored in structures, but he took every single geology class he could from Bailey Willis. He also took all of Lydik Jacobsen's courses in dynamics and mechanical vibrations. And then, as we talked about earlier with his fellow student, Harry Hesselmeyer, they did the analysis of the Alexander building, which resulted in his engineer's degree. They had a joint engineer's degree. I don't know if Stanford still does that, but anyway. So then after 30 years of being in practice and also being very influential in seismic code development, he came back to Stanford and got his PhD. And so with this strong connection to Stanford, it's not a wonder, it's not a surprise to any of us that he was interested in the Blume Center. My question to you is that how much was he involved in the development of the vision of the Blume Center, and what kind of engagement did he have in those early years?
John was a really unique person. He knew that He's into earthquake engineering way before me or Jim Gear. He knew, he had lots of ideas about what needs to be done in earthquake engineering. But he was, I would say, a Renaissance person. He would always tell us that, Haresh, now that you have a Blume Center, I'm not going to advise you what you should do. I have put my faith in Stanford University and you guys. You develop its path. You developed its future. Listen to people who have been working in this. Look at the history. Look at everything, but don't expect that I am going to interfere with what you want to do. He was an amazing person. He was a very good friend. He would take my students, my earthquake engineering students, to his office and with great pride spend half a day with them. He was very proud of educating young people into earthquake engineering, but he never interfered.
Yeah, the perfect donor.
Yes, perfect donor.
So, in the, let me see here. Yeah, in the proposal, you mentioned you talked about the number of faculty who were teaching certain courses. You talked about research that you already had underway, and here I'm listing a few of the research projects that you already had underway when you wrote that proposal to Stanford. And you also had ongoing curriculum. You were already teaching classes in vibrations and things like that. So just, can you tell us about some of those early projects you had? You mentioned a few of the ones that related to the seismic hazard in Central America, but you also had some things where you were looking at